Every single member of this institution, Democratic and Republican, should join us in condemning the president's racist tweets.
I was just going to give the General Speaker of the House if she would like to rephrase that comment.
I have cleared my remarks with a parliamentarian before I read them.
Can I ask the words be taken down? I make a point of order. The gentlewoman's words are unparliamentary and ready to be taken down.
That was Congressman Doug Collins calling out House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in an explosive showdown this last Tuesday. The Speaker, in a speech on the House floor, labeled as racist the president's tweet telling the progressive Democratic Congresswomen known as the Squad to, quote, go back and fix the crime-infested places from which they came. The Speaker's move declared a violation of the Chamber's rules of decorum. I'm back with Congressman Doug Collins, ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, gearing up to question Bob Mueller on Wednesday. And Congressman, explain what just went down there. There is a certain decorum that is required on the House floor.
There certainly is, and as the leader of the House, the Speaker is the one in charge actually of our rules. And for someone who very much values the debate and the decorum of the institution, we can have vehement debates. We can disagree violently even in our language, but there are certain things that we cannot say. And drawing on the personalities of the president and using that, it just shows how, frankly, degraded the Democratic Party has. The Speaker ought to be embarrassed right now. She should not look back on this as a victory. It was a moment of frankly, that brought dishonor to the House, because the body never voted to say that she didn't break the rules. In fact, she was told she broke the rules. But what she forced her party to do was take away her punishment. So she basically says, yep, I broke the rules, but I'll use my folks to say that I don't have to be punished for that, which meant that the words would be stricken, that she couldn't speak anymore on the floor. This shows you how dysfunctional this Democratic majority has been. They have done nothing except just run roughshod over the institutional processes in the House.
So let's take a look at what they have done. I mean, here we are in July, 7 months into their leadership of the House of Representatives. Give us your priorities. What are the priorities of this Congress, and what has gotten done so far?
Well, my wife is getting ready for her last year of teaching, and if she was grading this, she'd give it an F, because they have done absolutely nothing at this point. They've done nothing on immigration. They've done nothing on the economic conditions except try to roll back the gains that we made many times through our tax cuts, through our deregulation plan. What I'm seeing is simply they're playing to a base. We're seeing bills come to the floor that have inherent flaws in them that make them unworkable, even if they were signed into law. They're rushing stuff to the floor to feed a press release frenzy that their base wants to see. And really, at the end of the day, they're not getting anything done. And a classic example of this is immigration. They're ready to yell. Earlier this year, they said there was no crisis on the border. Now they say there's a crisis on the border, but yet almost 100 of them just a couple of weeks ago refused to send money to actually help on the border. That's hypocrisy in its highest, and that's what we've seen in the first 7.5 months. All they want to do is bash the president. All they want to do is talk about how bad he is and what the economy, but they don't want to focus on the fact that there's a great economy, businesses are starting, people are moving forward, and our standing in the world has improved. They have simply failed when it comes to governing in the House of Representatives.
And in fact, you've got two major priorities, and the clock is ticking on USMCA, and the clock is ticking on the debt ceiling. What are you going to do? Are you going to raise the debt ceiling?
Good question that the Madam Speaker needs to answer, because she runs the majority in the House, and the USMCA needs to pass now. This is something that the President has worked on, that both sides have. There's issues just in any major trade deal. There was stuff that I would like to see maybe done a little bit better. There's stuff that I'm sure that the Speaker would like to see done better. But Mexico and Canada have went out and been a part of this. The President has been a part of this. They could put it on the floor today and it would pass. The problem is they're playing politics because they simply don't like to give this President what they would perceive as a win. And the debt ceiling is something she's going to have to deal with on her Progressive Caucus and others, and also the budget caps deal. The question is, do they want to destroy our military as they had done previously, or do they want to actually build it up? We've got money in there, but they've got to find a budget caps deal so we don't shut down the government come September.
Exactly. So is that going to happen? I mean, so far the markets really haven't reacted, but as we see interest rates coming down in the next 2 weeks by the Federal Reserve, as we see this deadline getting closer, I suspect people and markets will react. I spoke with Senator Mitch McConnell this past week, actually, on USMCA. There are some people who do not think Nancy Pelosi is going to bring this to the floor at all. I asked Mitch McConnell about that. Listen to this.
I can't bring it up first in the Senate. If I could, under the procedure, I would, and it would be ratified here in the Senate. It has to start in the House. I don't think we ought to walk away from NAFTA if we can't get this done, but we ought to get this done.
That was a break from the president, Congressman, because when I interviewed the president a couple of weeks ago, he said, look, if she doesn't bring it to the floor and we don't get USMCA passed, we're going to go pre-NAFTA. We're going to get rid of NAFTA, and it will be pre-NAFTA. You just heard Mitch McConnell break with the president on that point and say, we can't do away with NAFTA right now. That'll hit the economy.
Well, I think what the majority leader is talking about, and I think what we all are, is it's time for Congress to do its job. It's time for the House of Representatives and the Senate to do its job. I've been part of big bills in the past few Congresses that were both bipartisan and actually got signed under President Obama and President Trump. What he's saying is, he said, let's do our job. Let's do this the way it's supposed to be done. And he's really telling the Speaker of the House, instead of worrying about all of the things that you think are grand and press releases to feed a progressive base that is pushing socialist policies all across the agenda, let's work on things that actually make the real difference in Americans' lives. And if you do that, that is why I say that they have failed in their mission, because we're not seeing the things that actually would help people. Mitch McConnell said, we'll pass it. Madam Speaker, where are you? Why have we not put this on the floor?
All right, we will be watching these important developments. Thanks very much, Congressman. Great to see you this morning. Thank you, sir.
Not all of the president's supporters are backing him on the tweets about the Democratic freshman. Joining us now from Long Island, Anthony Scaramucci, an informal advisor who briefly served as White House Communications Director. And Mooch, you've worked for Donald Trump. You wrote a book about Donald Trump. You've generally defended Donald Trump. And yet you've said that these tweets against the four women are racist. In fact, you said if Trump continues to act like this, okay, maybe we look at him and say, you weren't a racist maybe, but now you're turning into one. It's pretty strong words.
It's a wake-up call, but it's not, again, it's not just me. And so people can pretend that it's me. You know Washington better than I do, but there's a ton of people inside the Congress that feel the exact same way that are Republicans. There's a ton of donors that feel the exact same way. Now, maybe there are people that don't feel that way, but the president has a 45% approval rating right now, and maybe it's 50. If you break off 5% of that or 8% of that, it's going to be very bad news for the president. In the meantime, he has this unbelievably good economy. You know, I like Hogan Gidley a lot. I think he does a great job of defending the president, but in a case like this, it's actually indefensible. And so I sort of feel bad for him. They're putting him in a position where he's literally making pretzels, like at an Auntie Anne pretzel store inside a shopping mall. Okay? And it's bad for Hogan, it's bad for his reputation, and it's bad for the president's reputation. So
well, you say some Republican members of Congress agree, but with some exceptions, many of them have either deflected or been silent about this whole controversy. What explains that?
It's politics. What explains that is they fear the president. They fear being on the wrong side of him. They fear a possible primary. But this is a right or wrong thing, Howie. It's not an opinion. You don't do that in American history. You don't tell people to go back from where they came from, and you don't sound like that. And I've said this before, and it's worth saying again. If the racists think you're a racist, you should probably change your point of view. He is the president of the United States. We should not be debating whether or not he's a racist. And I'm going to tell you something. You know, people are going to say, no way this will happen. But trust me, he keeps going down this path. A Republican will primary him. Some Republican will step out of the box and say, okay, we have to recast the Republican Party for 2024. It would be a quixotic quest to primary him right now, but it would also send a message to people that we have to re-engineer this party. You cannot divide the country as the president of the United States. So people can be mad at me, or they can be courageous and tell the president the truth and try to help him out, because I still support him. I'd like to see him get reelected, but you can't divide the country in the process of going in that direction.
Well, how much blowback have you gotten from the pro-Trump side? I imagine the president is furious with you. I don't know if this severs your relationship with him. And I know you've been disinvited from a Republican fundraiser. It doesn't matter to you.
Yeah.
Why?
Does not matter to me. Why doesn't it matter to me? Because I'm my own guy. You can't have a loyalty test where somebody throws an apple on the floor and tells, hey, you got to tell us it's an orange. You don't want to disavow your personal history or your personal integrity to say something that isn't true. It's ridiculous, okay? These are racist comments, period, full stop. The fact that we even have to debate it means that the president is in trouble on this. So he
Mooch,
should continue to walk it back.
You just said you like Donald Trump, I get that, and that you want to see him reelected. So how do you square that by saying that these are racist comments? He hasn't taken them back. He may get primary.
I don't believe that he's a racist. But if you're going to talk in that way, if there's it's in the prompter, Howie, during that North Carolina rally. You're talking in a divisive way, and it elicits a chant like that. It's sending the wrong message to the United States. You do not want to win the second term of your presidency by dividing the United States, okay? It's called United for a reason. You got this unbelievable economy to run on. The squad is, and ultimately, to use his words, is a disaster. Run on what they're saying. Run on what their theology is. You can beat these people, but asking them to go back to their own country, they did that to my grandmother, they did that to my grandfather. Most people do not like that. The people that are going to tell the president the truth are going to look him straight in the face and say, hey, maybe your German grandfather got told that when he arrived here, okay? Well, you just don't do that from the Oval Office or from the office of the presidency. He's the leader of the free world.
Well, since you brought it up,
let me just finish. If people don't like me for saying it, I actually could care less. It doesn't matter to me.
But I was just simply going to ask, do you think the passion you're bringing to this and breaking with a guy who you've worked for and have generally supported is in part because, you know, your grandparents came from Italy and that you come from an immigrant family?
100%. That's what I just said to you. You're not going to disavow your personal story to stay loyal to the president. He throws an apple on the floor, and in order to stay loyal to him, you want to call it an orange? I'm just not going to do that, okay? And by the way, politicians will do that. I get that. But I'm a business person, Howie. I'm running $12 billion of capital or $11 billion of capital. We're trading all day. I trade hundreds of millions of dollars on a handshake. I'm not going to disavow my personal integrity or my personal story to say something that is true, isn't true. We're just not going to do that. By the way, he's fracturing his coalition. There's a very large group of people that are going to break away from him if he continues on that path. And by the way, these are going to be narrow electoral successes one way or another. You don't need to do that. Run on the economy. Run on the progress that you're making in the world.
I've got half a minute. You have said many times, including to me, that you've advised President Trump to soften his attacks on the press. He hasn't taken that advice. Why do you think he might listen to you and others who agree with you now?
I'm not suggesting that he's going to take my advice. I wrote an editorial that the press is not the enemy of the people. It's on thehill.com. He's not going to take my advice. I get that. But the thing is, he likes winning. And so if enough people speak up, he'll change his behavior, and that will be better for America. If he continues on this path, trust me, a large group of Republicans are going to say, okay, you know what? I love the country more than I love my 401k. We're not going to put this thing into a racial divide. I just really believe that, Howie. And you know what? Trust me, there's a lot of people up on that Hill and even people inside that White House that know that I'm saying the truth.
Anthony Scaramucci, not mincing any words. Thanks very much for joining us this Sunday, Mooch.
Good to be here.